Hey everybody, John Moore here, and I teach and practice shamanism in the state of Maine. And I want to talk to you today about, I'm going to give you my take on the best to kind of worst ways to learn shamanism. A lot of people contact me because I'm a teacher. I'm interested in learning shamanism. They have lots of questions. Can I learn online? Can I learn online for free? Should I take a class? Should I find a mentor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let me break it down a little bit. And I'll say up front that there are lots of different ways to learn things, and different people learn things better in different ways. Shamanism is both a topic that's very broad. It covers a wide range of topics, and it's very deep. All of those topics have a significant amount of depth to them. And so if you want to gain expertise in shamanism, if you want to become a practitioner someday, if you want to work with people, do healing, then you are probably going to want to find a teacher that you can study with long term, whether that is through some kind of mentorship where you're studying one-on-one with a teacher, an apprenticeship where you're studying with a class over a year or two, or even longer, and you're probably going to wind up taking some advanced kind of individual classes as well. It just seems to work out that way. I don't recommend taking an intro class with somebody or reading about shamanism in a book and then hanging out a shingle as a shamanic healer and taking on clients. You are going to run into things you aren't prepared to handle. You're going to be doing a disservice to your clients. You're going to be doing a disservice to yourself. You're going to be doing a disservice to the shamanic community. Now, can you learn shamanism online? This is a big question. And the answer is yes, you can, certainly. There are various ways to do this. One is you can take online courses with a teacher or a school that are live, held online, or pre-recorded. The best option for any kind of learning, in my opinion, is to have access to teachers who can answer questions and troubleshoot for you when things go wrong, or when when something comes up and you're like, that was weird, how do I handle that? Okay, if you don't have access to that kind of feedback, there's a little bit like, I taught martial arts for a long time, and people are always like, well, can you learn karate from a video or a book? And the answer is, yeah, you can learn some of the movements, the stances, whatever, but how do you know if you're doing it correctly? How do you know if your foot placement is exactly correct? Like, even if you look at yourself in the mirror, do you know what you're looking for? You don't have an expert teacher looking in on you and helping you out. So becoming a shamanic healer is a long-term process. It doesn't happen in a weekend class. I don't think I started seeing clients until at least 3 years into my education. And that's like solid education. That's like, not stopping my learning along the way. And there were a number of things that I had to cross off. I have a lot of books. I have, several thousand probably books, esoteric subjects, shamanism, comparative religion, anthropology, all kinds of stuff. Really good background information, maybe a few techniques to glean here and there, but I would not want to have learned how to journey and do all of those things through books, just because there's no back and forth. There's no, okay, I think I'm doing this right. Is this right? Kind of questions where people can steer me in the right direction. So for in my opinion, the best possible ways to learn shamanism always include ways to get feedback or get questions answered by a teacher, if not direct supervision by a teacher. There are some advanced shamanic practices that I have done that require absolutely direct supervision by a teacher. Like, teacher has to be in the same space with you, or even virtually as you're doing them. I have students all over the world, so I teach mainly through Zoom, and I have been able to take students through some advanced practices by being with them one-on-one over Zoom and helping them should they run into problems. So take those things into account. Now, a lot of people ask, and they get this, can I learn shamanism online for free? That's a big question that comes up if you do any sort of Google search on learning shamanism. So there's a number of people, and I get that. I get that money is really short for a lot of people right now. We're in an economy with a lot of inflation. A lot of spiritual people are not materialistic, and may not have a lot of money, and I understand that. Or people may just want to like dip their toes in and don't want to commit financially to that sort of thing. Um, there is a little bit of you get what you pay for with this. For one thing, I love doing these YouTube videos and teaching about shamanism and teaching different topics and that sort of thing. I will never put out free available to everyone videos about how to journey, for example. I feel like that's not responsible, for one thing. But there are people who do, and I don't know what the quality of their teaching is like. But again, you're not going to get the feedback that you need to really troubleshoot along the way or ask questions. The other kind of issue with this kind of thinking is people get really touchy around spirituality and money, and I understand that because there are a lot of people who use spiritual means to take advantage of people financially, that sort of thing, and it has been that way forever. But in spirituality, there has to be exchange. Like, I love teaching and I love practicing, and if I could do it for free, I would. But I have a mortgage, and I have children to feed, and I have internet to pay for, so I can meet with my clients and students. And in the world that we live in, the world that I live in, I have to have money to do that. So I can't spend my time, outside of what I'm already doing. I teach a lot of free classes, that sort of thing. But I also want there to be an exchange. I want students who are going to take this very seriously and put some kind of investment into it. If it's a little bit of a stretch, I understand that. It's been, sometimes it was a real stretch for me to pay for the training that I was doing, but I never went to the teacher and expected them to teach me for free. Because for one, I needed to value what they were teaching and I needed to be invested into it. I'll tell you that in the beginning of my practice, I would sometimes do sliding scale, or actually give people even like half off or free once in a while. Almost every time I did this for somebody, they would not show up for appointments. They hadn't paid for it, so why show up? Or contact me an hour after the appointment was supposed to happen and say, oh, I'm ready now, can we? So there wasn't this seriousness, there wasn't any kind of investment from that person, and that's really problematic. Yeah, I get, like, if you want to just learn about shamanism and you're kind of testing the waters, you don't want to make a big investment, certainly don't sign up for a 2-year long program that's going to cost many thousands of dollars. Start out with some inexpensive intro class, or watch a lot of YouTube videos till you get a sense of what you really want to do. If it's something that you really want to do, if it's something that you want to build a life around, you are going to have to invest your time and your resources. Maybe you can find a teacher who will do some sort of barter with you. I've never found that to work for me. Nobody's ever wanted to barter anything that I needed, unfortunately. But that's that's where it is. That's where the money question comes in. And a lot, there are a certain number of people out there, very vocal people, who say you should never charge for spiritual teaching, or whatever. I have no idea where that idea comes from. That's an arbitrary rule that somebody somewhere said, and people have bought into it. But that's never been the case. And if you go to even in indigenous cultures, when you go see a shaman, you might not pay them with money, but you're going to bring something for them. You're going to bring something valuable for them because you value their service, right? I remember seeing, watching something about someone going to see a shaman in Mongolia, a traditional shaman, indigenous shaman in Mongolia, and had to bring bottles of alcohol vodka or whatever it was to this shaman, so the shaman would work with him. So yeah, there is exchange in spirituality. And what happens from the teaching side, if I were to constantly just teach for free all the time and just give of myself, and with nothing, nothing really in return other than the satisfaction of teaching. And don't get me wrong, I find teaching very satisfying. I love teaching more than just about anything else I've ever done. But if I get nothing in return, I'm gonna burn out in a couple of weeks. Um, I'm just not gonna have the energy to keep up. For one thing, I'm gonna have to do something else for money, so that I can live. And for another thing, there's not gonna be an energy return, right? So I'm all for the altruistic aspects. I'm all for putting these YouTube videos out so people can learn more about shamanism. And I've taught a number of classes through platforms like Learn It Live. I taught. I did at the beginning of the pandemic when we were in lockdown. I did free meditations in the morning, and hardly anybody showed up for them. People didn't want to get up at 6 in the morning and meditate, even though it was completely free. And people could log in, and they were short, so people didn't have to invest their entire day. And I started out with 10 or 20 people, and it after a week people stopped doing it, so I stopped doing it. And that's kind of the way of the modern world when we're not really invested in things. So that's just a breakdown of learning shamanism. If you're really interested in learning shamanism, you can start by learning about shamanism, watching lots of videos. Check out your options for, if you're just dipping your toes in, find a 2 or 3 day introduction to shamanism class, being taught either live in person or online. If you are really serious about, if you've decided this is your path or you're feeling drawn to this, speak to a teacher like myself who will give you, almost anybody who contacts me about mentoring, I'll give them some amount of time where I'll have a conversation with them and talk to them about their goals and what they might be interested in. And without any sales pitch, there's no, like, if we're not a good fit, I don't want you to pay me to be your teacher. I want you to find the right teacher for you. Fit is very, very important when you're finding a teacher. Make sure it can be hard to get to know your teacher up front a little bit if you're just signing up for a class and you've never met this person. A lot of teachers will have YouTube videos like this one or others, or they will have a decent website where you can get to know about them a little bit more. But have a conversation with them, particularly if you're going into any sort of long-term relationship. When I met my teacher at the beginning of my shamanic training, and I was all gung ho, I'm like, I'm going to do an apprenticeship with you. She's like, hold on. You need to come meet with me in my office. And so I went and I had an appointment with her, and we talked for a couple of hours. And she said, okay, I will accept you as a student if you do this, and this before we start. And I agreed to it, and I did all the work that she made me do. And I studied with her for like 7 years. She's retired from teaching now, but just a wonderful teacher, and we really connected. It felt like a good fit. I loved her teaching methodology. I learned how to be a teacher from her, and so really respect and honor her, and the idea that you got to find the right teacher for you. It's really important. So I hope that's helpful. I hope you're happy and healthy. I will talk to you real soon.